Today we're doing 1.7 day 2, and today we're going to actually really get into combining functions. And then in addition, we're going to practice the skill from yesterday of stating the domain. So here you're given two equations. You're given f of x and g of x, and they want you to go through a series of operations. So for the letter A, they want you to add the two equations. So I have 2x minus 1, and I'm adding it with my x squared plus x minus 2. Because nothing's in front of the parentheses, I can kind of drop the parentheses, and we're just kind of combining our like terms. So I will have an x squared, I'll have plus 3x, and then here that'll combine to be negative 3. I have no fraction, I have no square root, and therefore the domain would be negative infinity to infinity. So now we're going to do subtraction. So subtraction says I have 2x minus 1. Then I'm subtracting the quantity of x squared plus x minus 2. So this time there is a value in front of the parentheses. It's technically a negative 1, so I have to distribute that in. So I'll now have a negative x squared minus x plus 2. And now we combine like terms. So I'll have a negative x squared plus 1x plus 1. Again, there's no fraction or square root. Therefore, my domain is negative infinity to positive infinity. So now we're going to multiply them. So I have 2x minus 1 and x squared plus x minus 2. So those of you who do the box method, you're going to draw a 2 by 3 box. Otherwise, you're just going to distribute. So I'll have a 2x squared plus, 2x cubed plus 2x squared minus a 4x. Then I distribute the negative 1, and it's helpful if you kind of stack them. So when I multiply that, I get a negative x squared, so I'm just going to stack it underneath the like terms. Then I'll have a negative x and a positive 2. So now I just add straight down. So I have a 2x cubed plus a 1x squared minus 5x plus 2. Again, I have no fraction or square root, so my domain is negative infinity to a positive infinity. So that's the multiplication. Letter D is division. So letter D, I'll set up, I have 2x minus 1 all over x squared plus x minus 2. Now, there's not really much work to be done here. I set up the division, it is what it is. However, there will be work when I go to do the domain part of it because I have a fraction. So I need to set the denominator equal to 0. So when I do that, I'm going to have x squared plus x minus 2 not equaling to 0. A times c is negative 2. My combination is going to be a 2 and a negative 1. So I have x squared plus 2x minus 1x minus 2. I group them. I need to have an x, so I'm left with an x plus 2. I take out a negative 1, x plus 2. So this factors to be x minus 1 and an x plus 2. So therefore x cannot equal 1, and it cannot equal negative 2. So the way we write the domain is negative infinity to negative 2, union negative 2 to 1, union 1 to infinity. So division, the division, actual division part of it is the easiest of the four because you just set it up. It's just then you're going to definitely have some kind of domain restriction as long as there's a variable in the denominator. If there's no variable in the denominator, then there is no restriction. All right, go ahead and try the practice problem. And then we have one more example. So our last example is again going over the domain. So they want us to add these two together. So I have x plus 3 plus the square root of x minus 2. So because these are both underneath square roots, can't really add them together, but I still can state the domain. So this one, I would say x plus 3 has to be greater than or equal to 0. So x has to be greater than or equal to negative 3. Whereas this one, I have x minus 2 has to be greater than or equal to 0. So x has to be greater than or equal to 2. Now these two things have to work together. This one says everything bigger than negative 3. This one says everything bigger than 2. So ultimately the 2 is going to override the 3, and my domain has to be 2 to infinity. And if you think about it, if you pick a value between these two, let's say 0, over here, I would get 0 plus 3, which is the square root of 3, which is a real number. It's a decimal, but it's a real number. Over here, I have 0 minus 2, which is the square root of negative 2, which is I root 2. So I can take a real number root 3 and add it with an imaginary root 2. So therefore, anything between negative 3 and 2 would work in one, but not the other. So I have to pick the value that would work for both of them, and that would be the 2. Okay? So reserve any questions for tomorrow, or you can post them on the question spot on the video.